Hello there.
What's up, guys? And today I will be ranking all 23 Marvel movies and putting them into 5 tiers. It was too hard for me to rank them 1 through 23, so I decided to put them into tiers. So as you guys can see on the screen now, you can see all 5 tiers. Let's not waste any time and get started. So there are 3 movies in the average tier, which is the last tier. So the first movie on this tier is Thor: The Dark World, or just Thor 2. I think everyone can agree that this movie is boring and very average. There's not one good part in this movie. It's all just average. It's not bad or anything, and I'm glad it's in the MCU because it shows us more of the Reality Stone, which is nice. I think the first Thor movie is funny, and Thor 3 is extremely funny, yet this movie is not very funny at all. It lacks comedy, and this movie desperately needs comedy. Well, good comedy. And that is about all I have to say about Thor: The Dark World. Now the next movie on this list is easily the most forgotten movie, and that is The Incredible Hulk. Like, does anyone even know that this movie exists, or does anyone even care? We all know the story of Hulk, so this movie doesn't even need to exist. This movie isn't the worst, it's just super forgettable. The main actor is okay, but I mean, who even is this dude anyway? Mark Ruffalo is not in this movie, and he's a much better Bruce Banner than this guy. This movie introduces a few new characters, and we never get to see them again. They don't even get mentioned in the rest of the MCU. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I've seen this movie one time, and then I saw half of it another time, and those were both like 10 years ago. Can anyone name someone who likes or even remembers this movie? I can't, but anyway, let's just move on with the next movie in this tier. The last and final movie in this tier is Thor. Thor is much better than both of these movies, and it should be in its own tier, but I put it here. Thor is not boring unlike the other 2 movies. Well, it does have some boring parts, but I'd say like 60% of the movie isn't boring and it won't put you to sleep. This movie does a good job of explaining Asgard and the whole Thor story to people who don't know much about Thor. Loki is good in this movie, and Thor being on Earth is very entertaining to watch. Overall, it's a slightly above average movie, but it still ends up here in the list. So now we are in the above average tier. And the first movie in this tier is also the first MCU movie to ever exist with Iron Man. As someone who loves all the Iron Man movies, it was tough to put it in this tier. Iron Man does a perfect job for telling the origin story of Iron Man. My favorite part of this movie is him in the cave building and using the Mark I. Now this movie falls right into the above average tier, just like our next movie on the list, Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 has a way better villain than Iron Man 1. And that villain is Ivan Vanko, also known as Whiplash. I guess Justin Hammer is also a villain too, but he kinda sucks. Everything good in Iron Man 1 is just better in Iron Man 2. This movie helps set up the first Avengers movie. This movie is also responsible for introducing War Machine to the MCU and Black Widow, I believe. I really liked this movie. We get to see more of the relationship of Tony and his dad Howard Stark. We get a proper introduction to S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie too. And that's about it for Iron Man 1 and 2. Now let's move on to the next movie, which is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I think that this is the most overrated MCU movie ever. S.H.I.E.L.D. ended too early, and we didn't get to see enough of it in the movies. This movie introduces Falcon, which is one of my favorite heroes, so I did like that. Also, I can't wait to see Falcon and the Winter Soldier when it comes out later on Disney+. But back to the movie. This movie shows us more of Nick Fury and who he is as a person, but not as much as Captain Marvel, which we will get into later. The action is incredible in this movie, and there's a lot of it too. I can remember just being so hyped watching the trailer for the first time, and after I saw the trailer, I just remember thinking that Bucky was the shapeshifter from Attack of the Clones for some reason. You know, what on earth was I thinking back then? That shapeshifter looks nothing like him. Man, I was an idiot. Everyone was so hyped to see the new gray shield, and then he changed it back to normal after like 4 seconds of having it. Now, I do like this movie, but people act like it's like a top 3 MCU movie, which is nonsense. Next, we have the first Avengers movie, which I also think is a little bit overrated. This movie shows us for the first time the Avengers unite and hint that Thanos is coming. Loki is a great villain in this movie, and this villain was the first good movie with Hulk in it. We get to see the start of the rivalry between Iron Man and Captain America. We also get to see the iconic SHIELD helicarrier in the movie too, which is awesome. Overall, this is a good movie. Next, we have Captain Marvel. Why do people hate on this movie so much? This movie is a good movie and it's honestly underrated. This movie shows us more of the Tesseract, I just don't know how to pronounce this. But anyway, this movie is not the best, but it doesn't deserve all the hate it gets. I wish we could have seen more of the Skrulls and the Kree too. This movie has so many plot twists in it, it's crazy. I'm also like 99% sure that's not how Nick Fury gets his scar on his eye in the comics, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
It was kind of lame to see that a cat scratched his eye, but it was also pretty funny. And that's it for Captain Marvel. Now let's move on. Moving on in the list with Spider-Man Far From Home, and I don't know if it belongs here or in the next tier, but I put it here. I didn't like the whole school trip thing. I kind of just wished him and his friends just went to Europe. I kind of wish this movie took place in New York City too, because Spider-Man is New York City's hero, and after just one movie, Marvel's already putting him not in New York City. I thought Mysterio was perfect for this movie. But I do have one complaint about him. Why wasn't he in Civil War? If he was just in one scene where he was like, oh, I'll get my revenge on that stupid Stark or something dumb like that, it would make this movie make more sense. It's just like, oh yeah, this villain has been planning this for years, but you guys didn't know till right now. Marvel is the king of planning, but Mysterio as the villain kinda seemed unplanned. I also wanted the obvious plot twist not to happen. I kinda wish Mysterio was an actual hero and actually helped Spider-Man. The ending was great, and it sucks to have to wait so long for Spider-Man 3. J.K. Simmons is perfect for the role of J. Jonah Jameson, and there is some huge potential there. Spider-Man Far From Home is much better than the rest of these movies in this tier, but it's not as good as the ones in the next tier. So to start off the good movie tier, we have Iron Man 3. In Iron Man 3, we get to see the aftermath of the Avengers and what a toll it took on Iron Man after saving the world. I loved all the Iron Man suits we got to see in this movie. This movie made Tony Stark more human, and this movie makes Endgame mean more because we get to see more of who Iron Man is and what he cares about and how he's changed as a person. Iron Man 3 is definitely underrated in my opinion. The villain is decent. You know, he's not the best, but, you know, whatever. This is the one movie out of all the MCU movies where it seems unrealistic because Iron Man didn't ask for help from another Avenger. Like, you're telling me that the President of the United States is in crazy danger the whole movie, and Captain America isn't even helping or cares? Not even S.H.I.E.L.D. helped, and S.H.I.E.L.D. was still alive and well at this point. Like, I just don't understand how Iron Man can't get any help at all from nobody. I don't know, I think that's crazy. But anyways, Iron Man 3 is a good movie and it's underrated. Next, we have Spider-Man Homecoming. This movie is hilarious and very entertaining. Vulture is an amazing villain in this movie and I hope to see him return someday. I think what I like about this movie the most is that they show Peter in school a lot, unlike the Sony movies. Spider-Man is still a kid, and in the Sony movies he had like 1 or 2 school scenes and then he graduated very quickly. So I liked how a lot of the movie actually took place in the school, and I liked how Peter was actually a teenager in the movie too. Iron Man is great in this movie, and so is Happy, who we don't get to see a lot in the movies until this one. Ned is a great sidekick. I remember seeing this and being like, who the heck is this? And then at the end, I thought he was the actual GOAT. Ned brought comedy that Harry Osborn could never bring in the Sony ones. This movie is much better than the sequel, and overall, it's a good movie. Next, we have Captain America: The First Avenger, another underrated movie in my opinion. All the military stuff in this movie is great and I really liked it. Peggy Carter, is that her name? I don't know. Anyway, her and Captain America have the only romantic relationship in the whole MCU that isn't overly complicated or confusing. I feel like Bucky isn't in the movie enough for being so important in the next two Captain Americas. This movie is just a classic MCU movie and it's so good. Hey, we're kinda halfway, so if you do like the video so far, then drop a like and consider subscribing. Now I'll stop with all the self-promo and we'll get back to the video. Next, we have both Ant-Man movies. These are the funniest MCU movies and you're not going to convince me otherwise. Ant-Man is a great character. The scene where he breaks into the Avengers facility is hilarious and super entertaining. Wasp kinda sucks in the first movie, but she does redeem herself in the second one. All of Ant-Man's friends are great and very funny. Hank Pym is great in both movies. I hope in Ant-Man 3 we get more flashback scenes with Hank Pym as the Ant-Man. The villain in the first movie is pretty average, and then there really isn't even a villain in the second one. I really liked Ghost, and I hope we get to see more of her in some future movies. And last, but definitely not least, is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This movie is very good. I'm glad we get to find out more of who Star-Lord's dad is. Apparently, in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, we will get to see the origin story of Rocket and possibly Groot too. Now, I just wanted to say that I knew who all the Guardians of the Galaxy were way before they were cool and before the movies were out too. And I know what you guys are all thinking. You're all thinking, weird flex, but okay. And I'll accept that. Star-Lord is supposed to have elemental guns, meaning he can shoot out ice, fire, electricity, and some other elements too. So basically, he is a ninja from Ninjago. What in the world did I just say? What am I, 8 years old? What the heck am I? But we never get to see those guns do anything like that. Mantis is a solid addition to the team. Also, I just wanted to throw this in here real quick, but does anyone else remember that Guardians of the Galaxy game? I just remember they had big heads, and I spent $5 or something like that on the game, and then it got taken down from the App Store like 5 months later. I'm still low-key salty that I wasted $5 like 7 years ago. But yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is very cool, and I can't wait for the third one. And that will conclude the good tier. Now, onto the great tier. Next, we have Black Panther. And first, let me just say, rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman, who was a great actor and a great man. Black Panther was very good. I can remember my older brother wanting to see a Black Panther movie after we watched the first Captain America, and I just remember him telling us that he really hopes they would make a Black Panther movie. And sure enough, 7 long years later, the movie came out. Black Panther is a great movie. Killmonger, I think that's his name, I don't really remember. You know, I should probably research the names more, but whatever. But anyways, Killmonger is a great villain. Black Panther's little sister, whose name I don't even want to try to pronounce, because I know I will mess that up very badly. Anyway, she's a great sidekick. Wakanda looks amazing in this movie. The action in this movie is also incredible. All the flashback scenes are very nice, and you know, technically this is a family movie after all, since all the main characters are related, so this might be the best family movie I've ever seen. Overall, Black Panther is a great movie, and it would be very unfortunate if we don't get to see a second one. Maybe you're watching this in the future and we do get to see a second one. So if you are watching this in the future and you just saw Black Panther 2, please tell me how it was. Next, we have Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is another underrated movie. I love this movie so much. Doctor Strange is one of my favorite characters because he's funny yet serious and realistic. The villains in this movie are very good, and this movie also looks amazing. Some of the characters are kind of forgettable, like Mordo and Doctor Strange's girlfriend or whatever she is. The Ancient One is a good character, and it was so cool to see her in Endgame fighting with the Avengers. Honestly, this movie is great, and I can't wait for the second one. We get to see Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch team up and work together. But that's it for now for Doctor Strange. Now we have the best Thor movie ever with Thor Ragnarok. This is 100% the best Thor movie, and there's no competition with it. And everyone will agree it is the best out of the three. Thor Ragnarok is just a fun movie to watch. It's funny, it's got tons of action, and it's also really important to the MCU. This movie also helped set up Infinity War. I'm so glad that Hulk is in this movie, and he's a great sidekick to Thor. Valkyrie is a great addition to the movie also. Loki is actually likable for the first time in the MCU right here. Loki was so likable that I actually kind of felt bad when he died in Infinity War. Hela was a great villain, and I'm actually super surprised Marvel would kill her off because she was so good. Also, I just wanted to say that there's a giant plot hole in this whole movie, because Thor is so powerful at the end with no hammer, but then he's so weak in Infinity War without his hammer. Like, it doesn't make sense at all. But, you know, it's whatever. Overall, Thor Ragnarok is a great movie, and it honestly redeemed the whole Thor franchise. Now next we have one of, or maybe it is my favorite MCU movie. This movie is definitely the most underrated movie out of all the movies to ever exist, in my opinion, and the movie is Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron is so good. In the first Avengers movie, we get to see the Avengers unite for the very first time, but in Endgame and Infinity War, we get to see them being broken apart or ending. So this is the only Avengers movie where they are just the Avengers and they're not starting or ending. This movie is very important in the Infinity Saga. This movie is the reason why Civil War even exists. If you think about it, Ultron definitely wants to destroy the Avengers, and honestly he kinda does. Because of what Ultron did in the Avengers Age of Ultron, they split up in Civil War. This movie is kind of responsible for Civil War, Spider-Man Homecoming, Black Panther, both Endgame and Infinity War, and last but not least, Ant-Man and the Wasp. So yeah, this movie might be the most important movie in the MCU. Now let me explain why it matters so much for each of those movies. So because of Age of Ultron, the Avengers fight over the Sokovia Accords and they end up splitting apart, causing more problems. Because of the events in Age of Ultron, Zemo becomes a villain who kills King T'Chaka, which sets up Black Panther. Vulture is in Spider-Man and makes a bunch of gear out of old Ultron bodies and makes new stuff out of it, which is why Spider-Man has to stop him. Age of Ultron splits up the Avengers through Civil War, which makes the Avengers lose in Infinity War, and because that they lost in Infinity War, they have to go back in time and fix everything in Endgame. And last but not least, because of Civil War, Ant-Man is locked up and under heavy supervision from the cops, which is a key part of the movie. Also, Age of Ultron literally sets up all the Disney Plus Marvel shows coming out soon. So yeah, it's pretty important. Ultron is a great villain, and I hope he makes a return one day, because he basically never dies in the comics because, well, he's Ultron. If you want to know more about Ultron without reading comics or watching cartoons, then I suggest you watch the animated Avengers movie. I think it's on Netflix. It's called Next Avengers. Next Avengers will really show you what Ultron could have done in the MCU. Ultron is my favorite Marvel villain of all time. I remember watching a bunch of cartoons of him as the bad guy, and I was super excited to see what Marvel could do with him in the movies. I just remember getting chills watching the Age of Ultron trailer, being so excited, and I remember thinking Ultron kinda looked like a Transformer. This movie is so good, and it brings in great new characters like Scarlet Witch, Vision, and Quicksilver. Quicksilver was a necessary sacrifice to show us how good Ultron is at being bad. To this day, I still don't understand the teaser at the end with Thanos in it. Like, how did he have the gauntlet if it wasn't even made yet, and why was he even paying attention to Ultron? Like, did he know about Ultron? Did he somehow make him evil or something? This is something we will never know and we won't ever understand. Iron Man is great in this movie. This whole movie is just a test. It's testing the Avengers to see if they can protect the world, and they get a little bit close to failing, but they hold on, which is something that they don't do in Infinity War, and they lose. Another reason why I love this movie is because it has one of my favorite new meme templates in it. Anyway, I loved this movie, and this is exactly what I wanted. And the last MCU movie in the great tier is Guardians of the Galaxy, which is the most fun MCU movies to watch. This movie is a Marvel classic in my opinion. It's hilarious, the plot is very good, the characters are very likable, the villain is good, Rocket and Groot are the best duo out of all the MCU. The Gamora and Star-Lord relationship is funny yet entertaining to watch. The ending is amazing with the dance-off to save the universe. This movie gave us hints about the second one, and I really like that. Also, did you guys know that the director of this movie put a huge Easter egg in the movie somewhere and no one has found it yet? That honestly blows my mind. There's a whole Reddit dedicated to find it, yet no one has found it so far. The prison break scene is amazing, and overall this movie is really great. Now this will conclude our great tier. We will move on to the best tier, which only has 3 movies in it. Welcome to the best tier, and congratulations to watching this long. Our first movie in this tier is Avengers Endgame. And what is there to say about this movie? We all know it's a masterpiece and an end of a saga. Endgame is sad, happy, exciting, fun, and satisfying to watch all at the same time. Thanos goes from being reasonable and respected in Infinity War to just a jerk in this one. And that's because it's old Thanos from before Infinity War. All the time travel in this movie is surprisingly simple and easy to understand when and where they are. This movie is a 10 out of 10. With Iron Man dying at the end was super sad for me because he was my favorite hero out of them all. This movie might be the last of its kind. I don't really see Marvel being successful without Iron Man, Captain America, and Hulk and the rest of them. Thor we know is going to end after Thor 4, so this might be the last great Marvel movie we could see. I could see Marvel in 5 to 10 years stopping with all the Avengers stuff and just focus on the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. Overall, it's a great movie and it belongs in everyone's top 3. Next, we have Infinity War. Infinity War is one of the only movies where the good guys lose. The only other movie that I can think of off the top of my head is Empire Strikes Back from Star Wars, where Luke Skywalker loses to Darth Vader and gets his hand chopped off and Han Solo gets captured. The Avengers lost and we had to accept that for an entire year as we waited for Endgame to come out. We see most of our favorite heroes disappear. I also remember I was texting a friend who had seen the movie at the midnight premiere, so they saw it before me, and I told them not to spoil anything for me, and then she just sent me the word dust, and I remember being so mad that she would say anything, and then she sent me a meme about the dust, but it was in Spanish because I was living in Honduras at the time, but luckily I didn't understand a few of the words of it, but after I saw the movie I remembered what some of those words meant, and she really did spoil the entire movie. So I just want to say thank you if you are watching. You know who you are. Who else remembers the "you better not spoil it for me" thing that lasted for like 7 weeks when Infinity War came out? Good times, good times. Also, I feel like I have to mention the millions of memes that came from Endgame and Infinity War. Like, oh my gosh, there are so many memes. Star-Lord was an idiot and we all hated him for a while. I remember having chills when Iron Man got stabbed by Thanos, but luckily he didn't die. He died in Endgame. But overall, this is a great movie and I rate it 11 out of 10. Yes, 11. That's how good it is. And our last movie in this tier is Civil War. Now, I'm not saying it's as good as the other 2 movies because it's not, but it does deserve to be in this tier. Civil War is basically an Avengers movie. Not only is this movie an Avengers movie, it's also a Captain America movie, and it feels like it's also an Iron Man movie at the same time. Does anyone else remember when Marvel said that the third Captain America was going to be Serpent Society? I still want that. I would have loved to see that. But either way, it still would have brought in Spider-Man into the MCU. Civil War is so good. I have seen this movie so many times. This was one of the only movies I went to the midnight premiere for. Also, I've said this in a past video, but I used to live in Costa Rica and Honduras, which are both right here in Central America, and we got movies there like way earlier than the US. We got them a week or at least a few days before the US got them. So yeah, getting movies earlier than everyone else in the world was pretty nice. This movie is very good, and it's also very rewatchable too. Civil War is so good, and it's very important to the MCU timeline. Overall, it is a great, great, great movie. And that is it. I hope you guys liked it. Do you guys want me to rank more things? It doesn't even have to be movies. It could be food, drinks, TV shows, characters in movies. So let me know if you want more of me just ranking stuff. Or just putting stuff into tiers like what I did with this video. So what are your rankings of the MCU movies? And did you like my list? Tell me guys in the comments below. Like I said before, I hope you guys really liked this video because it took me hours and hours and hours to make. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later. Bye!